Before we start, please support the channel, hit like, and subscribe. The laughter didn't sting until I realized whose mouth it came from. There she was, Lisa, my wife of 7 years, standing beneath the twinkling rooftop lights of the Dalhart Tower, raising a glass of champagne to her little circle of corporate vultures. "I came alone," she said, voice sweet as poison. "Didn't want anyone thinking I couldn't stand on my own. You know how reputation matters at these things." She laughed. They laughed. And I stood just 15 feet away, close enough to hear every syllable, but far enough to know I wasn't supposed to. I stepped forward, heart punching against my ribs. "Alone." My voice cut through the night like glass snapping. "Lisa, did you forget whose name's still on the lease?" Heads turned. Amanda tilted her flute. Lisa froze for just half a beat. She didn't flinch. That's what got me. She looked me square in the eye, lifted one shoulder, and said, "This is a professional event, Jake. You don't exactly add value here." "Professional?" I barked, a bitter laugh pushing up from my chest. "Is that what you call lying to your colleagues about being married? So you can play single at work?" Someone gasped. A waiter actually turned around. But Lisa just rolled her eyes. "You're embarrassing yourself," she hissed through clenched teeth, taking a step closer, her smile perfectly frozen for the audience. "I'm embarrassing you?" I leaned in. "Because I thought we were coming here as a team. But instead, I'm the guy standing in a suit while his wife pretends he doesn't exist." That's when Amanda stepped in. Amanda, Lisa's colleague from accounts. Blonde, sharp-heeled, and always 2 moves ahead in the office politics game. She slid between us with a smirk that could slice. "Wow," she murmured, her hand brushing my arm. "You're clearly single tonight." Then, just like that, she took my hand. I blinked. Lisa did too. "Come dance," Amanda whispered. "You look like you could use some dignity." The band was playing soft jazz, some forgettable sax solo floating through the night. Amanda didn't wait. She pulled me onto the dance floor with ease, like we'd done this 100 times. Her perfume was something vanilla and cold. Lisa's voice called after us once, "Jake," but it was weak. Just one word. No follow-up. Amanda leaned in close as we moved. "Don't worry," she said, voice barely audible. "Every person here just heard her throw you under the bus, and they'll all remember who helped you stand back up." I didn't say anything, but when I looked over Amanda's shoulder, I saw Lisa standing by the bar, alone now, her champagne untouched, her face drained of all that fake confidence. She looked rattled. For once, I didn't feel like the one who had to explain himself. Until that moment, my life was built around quiet routine. I worked mid-level operations at a logistics firm downtown, nothing flashy. Lisa always said I had steady energy, like a fireplace in winter. Our apartment was one of those clean, white-wall places with a view of the river and a wine fridge we didn't use. We had a system. We had calendars. We had scheduled weekends and shared Spotify playlists. And somehow, underneath all of that, I missed the cracks. But tonight wasn't about cracks. Tonight was a fissure, the kind you don't patch. And I knew this wasn't the worst of it. Not yet. Amanda moved like she'd done this 1,000 times. The rhythm came easy for her, every step fluid beneath the amber rooftop lights. I let her lead, not because I couldn't, just because, right then, it felt good to stop steering. My hands rested lightly at her waist as we swayed to the low hum of jazz, and for a few seconds, I let the tension fall away. But then I saw them. Across the rooftop, through the crowd, past glittering name badges and forced smiles, Lisa, laughing, hand on Tom Chandler's forearm. Tom. Every office has one. The guy who never breaks a sweat, whose hair somehow always holds shape, who finishes half his work and still gets full credit. The same Tom who once told me in a break room that marriage kills hunger. I'd remembered that line. Lisa must have too, because right then, her hand rested just above his belt as she tilted her head back in that exaggerated laugh I used to think was real. Then I saw it, his hand, sliding across the small of her back, 2 fingers brushing under her blazer. And she didn't flinch. Amanda felt me tense. "Jake," she whispered. "Don't." But I was already stepping away. I didn't walk. I moved. Each footstep louder than the last, heart pounding to the beat of bass and betrayal. The crowd parted, drinks froze mid-sip, conversations stalled. "Tom," I said, low and direct. He turned, smiling that overconfident grin of a man who thinks he can get away with anything. Jake, right? He said like we were pals. You know who I am, I said. You also know where your hand was 5 seconds ago. He laughed lightly, that stupid polished chuckle I'd heard in meetings too many times. Relax, man. Just dancing. You know how these parties go. No, I said, my voice slicing through the music. I don't. But apparently, you and my wife do. Someone turned down the music. Or maybe it was just the silence that followed me. Conversations hushed. Even the saxophone player faltered. I stepped closer. You walk around these events with a smile and a drink, thinking you're bulletproof because you quote Forbes articles and wear linen. But you're not a colleague, Tom. You're a snake in a suit. Tom's smile dropped. He straightened like he suddenly remembered there were witnesses. Lisa stepped in, her voice strained. Jake, don't make a scene. Too late. I snapped, eyes never leaving Tom. You made the scene the moment you let this guy touch you like you weren't married. Her jaw clenched. You don't know what you're talking about. I turned to her, my voice lower, but every word sharp. I know exactly what I saw, and I know what it means when someone doesn't pull away. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something else, but the words never came. Because she knew. And more importantly, everyone around us knew. Amanda reappeared at my side, her presence steady and almost protective. Well, she said lightly, breaking the tension. This got interesting fast. She turned to me, her voice just loud enough for Lisa and Tom to hear. Jake, can I get your number? For a second, I hesitated, not out of doubt, but out of sheer disbelief at how fast things were unraveling. But I nodded, pulled out my phone, handed it to her. She typed. Lisa stared at us like she couldn't believe what was happening. Amanda handed the phone back, her tone breezy. You know where to find me. Then she winked, soft, unhurried, and walked toward the balcony with the poise of a woman who always lands on her feet. I stood there, phone still warm in my hand, heart still thudding in my chest. Lisa didn't say a word, but her face? It wasn't angry. It wasn't smug. It was something closer to fear. She was losing control, and for once, I wasn't the one spiraling. The second the door to our apartment clicked shut behind us, Lisa tossed her clutch across the hallway table like it had betrayed her too. It bounced off the edge and hit the floor, but she didn't even glance down. Oh, so now you're just handing your number out to anyone who smiles at you, she snapped, spinning on her heels. Really classy, Jake. I unbuttoned my collar slowly, methodically, like I hadn't just been ambushed in my own home. You mean Amanda? The woman who didn't pretend to be single at a corporate gala? Her eyes flashed. Don't twist this. I'm not, I said, cutting her off. You already did the twisting when you stood there, smiling and clinking glasses with your little circle of sycophants while pretending I was some stranger. That's not what I was doing. Her voice pitched higher, flustered. I told them I came alone to keep things professional, to avoid gossip. Professional? I laughed, bitter. Is that what we're calling Tom's hand on your lower back now? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I took a few steps forward, watching her flinch just slightly under my gaze. You didn't stop him, Lisa. You didn't even look uncomfortable. You just stood there and let it happen, like it was normal, like it wasn't a problem. She crossed her arms tightly. It wasn't what it looked like. Then what was it? I challenged. Was he adjusting your dress? Guiding you through the dance floor like a gentleman from the 1800s? Don't be dramatic, she muttered. Then don't be hypocritical, I said, quiet now. Sharp. You want to talk about betrayal? Let's talk about the way you laughed at his jokes like I didn't exist. The way you let that man touch you in front of an entire floor of your colleagues. And then you want to come home and lecture me for giving someone my number? She faltered. Her jaw worked silently for a second, trying to form something that could pass as defense. But there was nothing. I stepped back, letting the silence do its work. Go on, I said. Call it betrayal. Just make sure you're ready to admit yours first. She stared at me. Really stared. Like she was trying to find the version of me she'd known, but didn't quite recognize anymore. And maybe that version wasn't there now. The fight drained out of her slowly, like air slipping from a balloon. Her shoulders dropped, arms uncrossed. She took one step toward me, voice softening. I didn't mean to hurt you. Yeah, I said flatly. Well, you did. She blinked, then nodded once. I'm sorry. Then she turned without waiting for forgiveness and disappeared down the hall, bedroom door, closing behind her with a muted click. I stood in the living room for a while, the dim light from the city casting sharp lines across the hardwood. The apartment had never felt so quiet. So staged. A place where two people lived. But tonight, only one of them had been honest. And I wasn't sure that counted for much anymore. 3 mornings passed in silence. Not the kind of silence that heals, the kind that stretches. Long tense. Room to room. I slept on the far edge of the bed. Lisa didn't even try to close the gap. No good night. No reach for my hand in the dark. Just breathing. Hers, steady, and mine, measured. Like I was conserving oxygen. On the 4th morning, I heard heels across the hardwood. I stepped out of the bathroom, toothbrush in hand, and found her standing near the front door in a sharp navy pantsuit. Tailored, pristine, that high-collar confidence she wore when she needed the world to forget she was human. "I'm flying out in a couple hours," she said, eyes scanning her phone. "Conference in San Francisco." She said it like we were co-workers. Not married. I leaned against the doorframe. "Week-long." She nodded without looking up. "Back Friday." Company booked the usual suite. I glanced at the suitcase by her feet. New luggage, sleek graphite gray with gold zippers. Not the scuffed roller we used when we traveled together. That one was still in the closet. My gaze lingered there, just long enough for her to notice. Then I asked, flat and direct, "Tom going too?" Her fingers froze mid-scroll. For a second, neither of us spoke. She looked up slowly, her voice dipping into something careful. "He's presenting. I'm not on the same panel." I didn't blink. "But same hotel?" She walked over to the console table, opened her leather folio, and pulled out a printed itinerary. She held it up like a peace offering, like ink on paper could undo everything sitting between us. "Signed by the director," she said. "You can see for yourself. 2 queen beds. Shared room. Company saves money." I let the paper hang in the air a moment before taking it. I didn't read it, just held it loosely in my hand and nodded once. "You don't have to explain," I said calmly. Her eyes narrowed. "You asked." "Sure," I replied. "And you gave me an answer. Doesn't mean I bought it." She exhaled, not frustrated, just tired. "Jake, I'm trying to do my job." "Yeah," I murmured. "So is Tom." There was a moment, just a flicker, where I saw something behind her expression. Guilt? Maybe. Or maybe just the discomfort of not being trusted anymore. She bent down, zipped her suitcase, and stood up straight. "I'll call when I land," she said. I nodded again, same as before. Not agreeing, just acknowledging. She grabbed her coat from the hook and turned the handle. Light poured in from the hallway. She paused there, like maybe she'd say something else. She didn't. The door closed gently behind her. And I just stood there, itinerary still in my hand, staring at that space where she'd stood. The calm on my face didn't match what was under it. Because deep beneath the quiet, something was shifting. And it wasn't going back. The apartment felt too quiet without the sound of her heels crossing the floor, the clink of her coffee spoon, the soft rustle of papers she always pretended to read but never really did. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, it felt off balance. I poured myself a drink around 9. Not out of stress, out of routine. Scotch, 2 fingers, no ice. Sat in the armchair by the window and let the lights of the city blur into shapes. I hadn't planned on thinking about Lisa. But that's the thing about betrayal. It finds you in the quiet moments. At 10:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. Lisa, sharing a bed with a colleague on a business trip. Company saves money. That was it. No context. No emojis. No haha to cushion the blow. Just plain, surgical truth. For a second, I didn't move. I reread it 3 times. My thumb hovered over the screen while my other hand slowly curled around the base of the glass until my knuckles turned white. I could have called her. Could have fired back something clever, something biting. But instead, I typed one simple line. "Me. I'll send money for your own room." I hit send. Waited. The response came quicker than I expected. "Lisa, no need. It's fine. Don't be dramatic." There it was again. That word. Dramatic. Not thank you. Not I understand. Just a dismissal. A shrug. Like I was overreacting to the idea of my wife. My wife. In a hotel bed with another man. In a city 3 hours and 1,000 miles of trust away from me. I stared at the screen, her words glowing in the dark. Something tightened in my chest. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't rage. It was confirmation. That shift I'd felt at the gala, the quiet crack beneath our feet, it wasn't imagined. It was spreading. I didn't text back. Didn't call. Instead, I turned the phone over, screen down on the arm of the chair, and sat in the silence I used to treasure. but it didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like the pause before something collapses. At 12:15 a.m., I was still on the couch. The drink was untouched now. I didn't even realize I'd set it down. My mind kept circling back to the way her text sounded. Not guilty, not ashamed, just tired, like she'd made her peace with it. With me. At 1:07 a.m., I finally stood. Walked down the hallway barefoot, the floor cold beneath me. I passed the empty side of the bed, the corner she always tossed her scarf on, the pillow she folded under her arm when she slept curled up like she used to when we first dated. The covers looked neater than usual. I lay on my back, eyes open, staring up into the dark. She hadn't lied, not technically. She told me, boldly, casually, like truth delivered without emotion doesn't cut as deep. But it did. It sliced straight through the thin hope I'd been holding on to. And the longer I stared at the ceiling, the more the room began to shrink. Because I wasn't just losing her. I was losing the version of me that used to trust her. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. My body lay still, but my mind ran marathons. By morning, the apartment looked exactly the same. Clean countertops. Distant city hum. A half-used coffee pod left where she always forgot to toss it. But something inside me wasn't where I left it the night before. I was done waiting for answers. At 8:06 a.m., there was a knock at the door. Amanda. She didn't text. Didn't call ahead. She just showed up with 2 coffees and a tray and a look that told me she wasn't here just for small talk. I opened the door, and she walked in like she belonged there. Her hair pulled into a loose bun, no makeup this time. Her blazer hung over one shoulder, and she set the coffee down like it was a peace offering. "Before you say anything," she said, voice low, "I'm not here to stir the pot." I raised an eyebrow, not touching the coffee. "But I think you should know," she continued, looking me square in the eye. "People are talking. About Lisa. And Tom." My stomach didn't twist. Not anymore. I'd already digested what little truth Lisa fed me. "What are they saying?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Amanda leaned against the counter. "That they've been sharing more than a hotel room. That they've been close at every client dinner this year. That she laughs at his jokes like he's the only person in the room. That during last quarter's review trip, they were seen coming back from the bar together at 2 in the morning." I nodded slowly. No surprise. No anger. "Thanks for telling me," I said. She tilted her head. "You're not shocked." "I'm not," I said simply. I just stopped pretending I didn't know. Amanda studied me for a second. Then, with a hint of something unreadable in her expression, she asked, "You want to send a message?" I looked at her. Really looked. And then I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and handed it to her. She didn't need instruction. She stepped beside me, leaned just slightly against my shoulder, and held the coffee cup in one hand like she belonged in the moment. My arm didn't move. I didn't flinch. The shutter clicked. Just one photo. Warm kitchen light. Easy proximity. No context needed. Amanda smiled faintly as she handed the phone back. "You sure?" she asked. I typed the caption without hesitation. "I also share something." And I hit send. To Lisa. Seconds passed. Then the phone vibrated. Once. Twice. 5 times. Her name lit up the screen in waves. Lisa, 3 missed calls. Then again. Amanda's eyes flicked to it. "Want me to leave?" "No," I said, placing the phone face down on the table. "We've got something to do." She blinked. "What do you mean?" I walked over to the drawer, pulled out a copy of the company's employee conduct policy, one Lisa made me read when I applied for a referral bonus last year. I set it on the table. "HR," I said. "You and I both know what Lisa and Tom are doing violates half of this." Amanda looked at me, processing. "You want to file a complaint?" she asked. "No," I replied. "We're going to file a complaint." She studied me a moment longer, then gave the slightest nod. "All right." We sat at the table, side by side, 2 coffees cooling between us, and opened the laptop. Typed the header, "Formal ethics complaint, conduct violation." She handled the parts about public displays, whispers, the inappropriate closeness during meetings. I filled in the flight confirmations, copied the hotel itinerary, and pasted the screenshot of Lisa's late-night text for context. We didn't exaggerate. We didn't lie. We just told the truth, plainly, precisely. By the time we hit submit, the phone was still buzzing across the counter. Lisa's name again. I didn't answer. She'd made a move. Now I had to. 2 days of silence. No more calls. No more texts. No explanations. just a widening space between what Lisa thought we were and what we actually were now. I didn't check the HR portal again. Didn't need to. I knew the process. Lisa would have received the notice within 24 hours. The words, pending internal investigation, probably hit her inbox sometime between a catered breakfast and the second round of client pitches. And now, 2 days later, the sound of keys jingling outside the apartment door broke the quiet. The lock turned. She stepped in. Luggage wheels bumped gently against the doorframe as she pulled her suitcase inside. Her hair was pulled back in a tight knot, her blazer slung across her arm instead of her shoulders. She looked like she hadn't slept on the flight. Or maybe the guilt had worn her down in flight. She closed the door behind her and just stood there in the hallway for a beat. Our hallway. Like she wasn't sure if she was welcome anymore. She wasn't. "Jake," she said quietly. I stayed in the kitchen, hands resting flat on the counter. She took a few tentative steps closer, then stopped short when she saw my face. I wasn't angry. I was calm, and that scared her more. "I saw the HR notice," she said. It's serious." I didn't answer. "Jake, please," she tried again. "Can we talk about this? Just sit with me." "No." Her breath hitched. "I don't think you understand what this could mean for me," she whispered. I turned my head slightly, not enough to face her, just enough to signal I was listening. "I understand perfectly. I could lose everything," she said, voice cracking. "They're already asking questions. Meetings are being pulled. People are treating me like I did something criminal." "Maybe," I said, finally looking at her. "Maybe that's what happens when you break policy, cross boundaries, and send your husband casual texts about bed sharing with coworkers." Her lips parted, but I didn't let her speak. "And then," I added, "you try to play the victim when the fallout hits." She stepped forward. "Jake, you know me. You know I never meant for, you're right," I said sharply. "I didn't know you before." Her eyes welled, but I didn't blink. Just talk to me," she begged. "We can get ahead of this. If you just withdraw the complaint, I can." "No," I said. She blinked. "You're serious?" "I don't talk to people under investigation," I said, my voice flat. "You of all people should appreciate company policy." Her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "Jake, this could ruin me." "No, Lisa," I replied. "You already did that part yourself." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the kind that echoed. She nodded slowly, face hardening even as her eyes shimmered. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it," she whispered. I tilted my head. "Yeah, you didn't think." She stood there for another long second, like maybe the ground would shift in her favor. But I didn't move, didn't flinch. And when she finally turned toward the bedroom with her suitcase dragging softly behind her, she didn't say another word. I waited until the door clicked shut behind her. Then I walked over, locked the front door, and left her on the other side of it. Not because she couldn't leave, but because I wanted her to know she wasn't coming back in. The sun was just starting to break through the high-rise skyline when I stepped into the law office. Glass walls, chrome accents, and that familiar coldness of places where words are weapons. A receptionist greeted me with a rehearsed smile, then waved me toward conference room C. Mark Reynolds was already waiting. He looked exactly how you'd expect a corporate attorney to look. Salt and pepper hair, tailored navy suit, wire-rimmed glasses that made him seem both reasonable and unflinching. The kind of man who knew the game inside and out and never lost sleep over playing it. He stood as I entered, extended a firm hand. "Jake Harmon," he said. "Glad you reached out. Have a seat." I sat across from him, the table cold beneath my palms. "I assume this is about the ethics complaint you filed last week?" he asked, already flipping through a sleek folder with my name on it. "That's part of it," I said, "but I want to take it further. I want documentation pulled, communications, travel expenses, meeting logs. I want the paper trail." He nodded, not surprised. "You believe your wife violated internal policy beyond HR code?" "Yes," I said clearly. "She and Tom Chandler, her co-worker, have been misusing company funds, hiding their relationship behind company-paid travel, shared hotel rooms, private meetings, late-night expenses. It's all on record somewhere." "And you have confirmation?" he asked. I pulled out a folded printout from my coat pocket. Lisa's late-night text. Mark scanned it with a slow breath. "Sharing a bed with a colleague on a business trip, company saves money." He looked up, blunt. "She's not denying it," I said. "She just thought I wouldn't act." Mark tapped his pen against the edge of the folder. And now she's under internal investigation? Correct, I said. But I don't want them handling it quietly. I want it done officially, through legal channels. I want her held accountable by more than just the gossip in the break room. He nodded, writing something quick in his legal pad. All right, here's what we can do, he said, laying it out clean. We'll file a formal evidence request with her company's compliance team. That includes all expense reports, internal emails, calendar logs, and reimbursement claims tied to the San Francisco trip, and any others in the last 6 months involving both her and Chandler. My fingers curled around the edge of the table. If we find a pattern of misuse or personal relationships leveraged for professional gain, we can present it not only to the company board but, if needed, to an external oversight committee. Depending on your goals, that can lead to termination, forfeiture of severance, and, if fraud is proven, a civil suit. I exhaled slowly. That's what I want. Mark nodded once. Then let's get started. He slid a document toward me. Authorization to begin the inquiry, he said. You'll be listed as the initiating party, protected under spousal conflict exemption. Legally, it'll go through the firm, not your name. I reached for the pen. Signed. Simple. Final. When I leaned back in my chair, something eased inside my chest, like a knot that had finally given way. Mark stood and extended his hand again. We'll be in touch within 72 hours. You're doing the right thing, Jake. I shook his hand firmly. Not for revenge, just clarity. He nodded once. That's the most dangerous kind. Outside, the air felt sharper. The cold wasn't just on my skin. It was in the way the street noise sounded, distant and calm. The world wasn't back to normal. Not even close. But the first step had been taken. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't stumbling through the damage anymore. I was moving through it, with direction. It was a Thursday evening. Cold, gray sky pressing down on the city, the kind that turned everything silver and silent. I came home to the smell of nothing. Just stillness. The way it gets when a house has held its breath for too long. Lisa was already at the dining table. She wasn't dressed like someone who had just come from work. She wore a simple sweater, hair down, no earrings. Her shoulders looked smaller somehow, like the weight had finally caught up to her. She didn't look up when I walked in. Didn't speak until I placed my keys in the dish by the door. Then, quietly, without lifting her head, she said, "They fired me." I didn't move. She sniffed once, wiped at her eyes with the back of her sleeve, and tried to compose herself. Her voice shook as she continued. They said the investigation revealed ethical misconduct, that I had misrepresented personal travel, blurred professional boundaries, created risk exposure. All those cold words that mean, you crossed a line. I stayed standing. She glanced up, and I saw it then. Her face was blotchy, eyes red, like she'd been sitting there for a while, working up the nerve to say it out loud. I begged them for a warning. Anything. But they'd already made up their minds. She gave a weak laugh. Guess when you write things down in emails and text them to your husband, it gets hard to spin the story. I didn't say a word. She looked down again, fingers fidgeting with the seam of a cloth napkin. No company in the industry will touch me now. My name's out there. My reputation's gone. I can't even get a call back for a contract role, let alone a full-time job. I have nothing left, Jake. Her voice cracked at my name. She tried to breathe through it, blinking fast. I know I hurt you. I know I made choices that, at the time, I convinced myself were harmless. But I was wrong. So wrong. Still, I said nothing. Lisa leaned forward, folding her hands, like she was praying for something she couldn't name. I'm not asking you to forget it, she whispered. I'm asking for mercy. Please, don't end us like this. I stood there, silent, still, as her words hung in the air. Then I walked to the cabinet, pulled open the drawer, took out a single envelope, and laid it on the table in front of her. Divorce papers. Clean. Final. Already signed. Her face crumpled the moment she saw them. Her mouth trembled. She reached out with both hands, touched the envelope like it might disappear if she held it gently enough. You all ready? Yes, I said quietly. She shook her head, slowly, tears now falling freely. Jake, please. I can't. You already did. I cut in. All I'm doing is giving the ending you wrote a place to land. She opened the envelope with shaking hands, pulled out the stack of documents, and stared at the page where her name belonged. For a long time, she didn't move. Then, with a sob so soft it barely broke the air between us, She reached for the pen that sat near the napkin. Her signature came slow, uneven. When she finished, she laid the pen down like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Neither of us said anything. She sat there for a long moment before finally standing, her movements slow and mechanical. She walked to the bedroom, and I listened to the sound of drawers opening, zippers sliding, the quiet thump of shoes being packed. No yelling, no slammed doors, just the final clicks of a chapter ending. When she returned, her suitcase in hand, she stopped by the door, resting her hand on the frame. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something. But in the end, she just gave a nod. Not of gratitude, not forgiveness, just acceptance. She walked out. And this time, she didn't look back. I stood there, in the exact same spot she left me. Not victorious, not broken, just done. Saturday afternoon in the suburbs hits different when you've been through hell. Everything felt calmer out there. Slower. Trees swayed gently above well-trimmed lawns. Laughter drifted from backyards where charcoal smoke curled upward into the sky, like a flag of something simple and good. I hadn't been to one of these in months, maybe years, but I said yes this time. Amanda was the one who drove us. She didn't ask too many questions on the way out. Just played her usual playlist, some mellow rock, soft vocals, and tapped the steering wheel like she wasn't the center of any storm. When we got to Darren's place, old friend from college, solid guy, everyone greeted me like I hadn't disappeared, like I hadn't vanished into a mess of lawyers and silence. That's the thing about true friends. They don't need explanations, just eye contact. We grabbed a couple of beers and settled near the grill. Amanda was chatting easily with a couple of the wives, and I sat on a folding chair, legs stretched, the sun warming my arms. That's when Matt leaned over. Another old friend. He'd always had a nose for gossip, but never in a cruel way, just sharp, observant. "You here?" he asked quietly, tilting his bottle toward the fence line. I glanced at him. "Hear what?" He hesitated, then said, "Lisa and Tom. They're living together now, somewhere near Logan Square. My cousin works at a property management firm. She handled their lease." I didn't respond. He took a swig, then continued, a little slower. "Neither of them's working. No job offers. Reputation's kind of tanked. Word is, Lisa's been seen at a clinic a few times. Might be pregnant." My jaw didn't move. I just stared at the smoke rising off the grill, the sizzle of hot dogs blending with distant music. Matt went on, softer now. "She's reaching out to people. Old contacts. Friends. Even tried to get in touch with Stacy. You remember her? She used to intern at the firm? Asked for money." I turned my head slightly. "Did Stacy give her any?" Matt shook his head. "No. Nobody has. Honestly, man, no one wants to get dragged into it. Everyone's got their own stuff. And let's be real, Lisa burned a lot of bridges." I nodded slowly, not out of satisfaction, just recognition. Amanda came over a minute later, handed me a fresh drink, and sat beside me in the grass like she'd always been there. "What did I miss?" she asked. "Nothing," I said, letting the sun hit my face. "Good," she smiled. "Let's keep it that way." And for the first time in a long time, I let myself lean back and breathe. 2 years changes a lot. I'd been on the road most of that week. Client meetings, hotel check-ins, the usual airport shuffle. I'd gotten used to being the man who moves forward. Clean schedule, clean cut, clean record. On the drive home, I took a different route. Traffic had jammed up on the interstate, so I veered onto a side street I hadn't touched in a decade. Somewhere between habit and accident, I ended up in a part of the city I barely recognized. And that's when I saw the house. Peeling paint. Yard grown wild. A sagging porch that looked like it had weathered too many storms. And there she was, Lisa, standing still in a thin robe, arms folded tightly across her chest like she was trying to hold herself together. Hair unbrushed, barefoot, staring into the street like the world might send her something. Anything, if she waited long enough. I slowed the car. She didn't react at first. Then, as my tires crunched the gravel, her eyes moved. Locked onto mine. We stared at each other across a gulf far wider than the yard between us. She didn't look angry or desperate, just hollow, like someone who'd long since run out of words and tears and noise. I didn't wave. She didn't flinch. There was no drama, no collapse into apology, no begging for another chance. Just silence, the kind that carries more weight than shouting ever could. I held her gaze for one final second. Then I pressed the gas and kept driving. Because some stories don't need a final chapter. They just need an ending. And that was enough. And that was the end of the story. I still think about Amanda, how she stood by me when she didn't have to, how she walked into my apartment with truth instead of pity. She could have ignored the rumors and kept her distance, but instead, she chose to speak up. Did she do the right thing? Or would you have stayed out of it? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit somewhere real for you, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got more to tell.